So I want to ask you, how many in this room view themselves as an introvert? Hands up. How many in this room view themselves as a leader? Well, you know what? That pretty much represents what we'll actually see out there. Did you know that only 25 to 40% of leaders are actual introverts? But given that fact, the question often comes up is, are introverts successful and effective? Not always, but many are. So let's just take a little look at my story, just because I want you to sort of think about it in a different perspective. So as I view myself as a leader, I always have. But I'm also a very strong introvert. I take all of my energy and all of my rejuvenation from inside, very much like an introvert does. I also tend to observe a lot around me, like most introverts do. The other thing is, a lot of people don't see me as being shy. They don't see me as being that quiet mouse in the corner. But that's because I've learned to overcome some of the challenges that come with being an introvert. Not every introvert is shy, not every introvert is quiet, but they have a quiet way of making their presence felt, and that works. So let's have a look at two key leaders in the political arena in North America who are strong introverts. One is President Obama. The other is the Prime Minister of Canada, Stephen Harper. Now, politics, regardless of what you think of the two leaders that I spoke about, politics is primarily a field that is attracted by people who are extroverts. They love to go out and meet people. They love to get out and talk to people. They love to hear their own voice, my opinion. But that's what happens. Certain people, that's the way they act, and you know what? We need them. But when you think about Harper and Obama, they've made their mark by being introverts and have some very powerful positions. So now, the other thing that I think about is, as an introvert, how can you be so effective if you tend to be more quiet, that you tend to get your experience and your strengths from inside? Part of that is exactly that. It's that quiet that actually helps you expand. And also, many introverts learn ways and techniques, as I have, to actually improve their path. So how do you overcome those barriers? How do you overcome those challenges to be successful? Now, if I look at the fact that when people are introverts and they tend to be that silent person, that we really do have an opportunity to actually empower the people around us. We have the ability to engage people in a very different way, because our personalities tend to be more behind the scenes and they're not the central focus. So that's one of the things. Think about where leadership is. A lot of people think of leaders as having to be out in front and really the show. But I always say leadership is more about leading than it is about you. And that's why introverts can be successful. In a study by the Harvard Business Review, they actually found that 65% of CEOs that they surveyed found introversion as a barrier to leadership. And I find that very interesting, especially when you consider up to 40% of all leaders are introverts. The other thing that I find really interesting is that in her book, Susan Cain stated that introverts are often sort of considered to be where women were 50 years ago. So when we think about it, she's actually saying that being an introvert today is only at the beginning of what's going to come. And I think that's really exciting, both as a woman and as an introvert. So as we go forward, think about this. There are lots and lots of opportunities. But I'm going to give you a story about two of my clients. I worked with one client. She has a company of 5 employees. She's a very strong personality, definitely an extrovert, but one of the quieter extroverts that I know. She hired all introverts in her company. Now, the reason I was brought in was to actually work with her because she found that people were underperforming, they were disengaged, and there was no creativity. Well, when I was working with her, it was very obvious. Her extroverted personality became the power, and everything was around her. And everybody else just went along with it because it was easier to just be that way. Another client of mine has a company and it's 200 people in size. Not excessively large, but large enough. Now this gentleman, he actually works to network with people within the company and externally every single day. The interesting part is he has built a very engaged team. He has very low turnover, and he knows when to pull the right people together to get the job done. That was a really exciting team, and we actually were able to work with him to actually lead him in his industry so that his organization could grow and develop and foster, and primarily that he was able to get recognition for the work that he and his team were doing. Two different scenarios, two different people. When you look at, should an introvert be a leader? My stand is absolutely. Should you be empowering your team and building them? My stand on that is also, I totally agree. So go forward, take that strength as an introvert, really work it to your advantage, empower your team, stimulate the innovation and creativity that comes from that. And Apple's a really great example of that. Apple, Steve Wozniak, he is a strong introvert as well, and he has, along with what Steve Jobs has done, built an extremely successful company. That is what you want to try to attain. So go out, make your mark in the world, and let's make a difference.